We will start Lamed Beis Amid Aleph towards the bottom. Amar Mar. We learned before we had a machlekes between Rebbe and his father, talking about a fellow that gives a basket to his friend. He tells him to collect figs. So it depends. He tells him to collect figs without handing him a basket. So then we don't know how much the person's going to collect, and the owner of the field for sure didn't take Meiser. But if he gave him a basket to fill, so it's possible that the owner took Meiser because he knows how much the person's taking. He doesn't want this fellow to eat his figs without Meiser. So Rebbe said that if the person was a person that gave it to him was an Amaretz, so we don't know if he took Meiser. So the fellow that's going to eat has to take Meiser. But if the owner of the field that gave the fellow the basket was a chaver, that's always assumed to have taken Meiser, then the guest in the field that has the basket doesn't need to take Meiser. It's for sure that the owner took Meiser. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says the opposite. He says that if it's an Amaretz, then we don't know if he took Meiser. But if it's a chaver, then he definitely did not take Meiser. That's why chaver is supposed to have taken Meiser. He says, well, the chaver wasn't with the person collecting. And there's a rule, there's a stringency, that you're not supposed to take Meiser unless you're right there. It's called Shalem and Amukif. You're not right there, it's not right next to you. So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says the assumption is that the chaver did not take Meiser, and the fellow in the field needs to take Meiser Vadei. So the difference between Rebbe and Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, is it Meiser Safek or is it Meiser Vadei? According to chaver, according to Rebbe, it's Meiser Safek. He takes, we don't know. According to Rebbe, he doesn't need to take Meiser at all. And according to, because it's a chaver, and according to Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, he for sure needs to take Meiser. And it's just, where's the Safek come in? That's only if it's in Amaretz. So Amar Mar. We learned before in this Brisa or a Mishnah. Was it a Brisa or a Mishnah? The Tanya was a Brisa. So we learned before, B'meh Devarim Amurim, we are about 10 lines from the bottom. Ba'amaretz. When do we say that you need to take Meiser Misafek? That's only by an Amaretz, when he gave the owner of the field as an Amaretz. We don't know if he takes Meiser. He gave the fellow, his guest, the basket, and the person wants to eat. Now, one point I left out, which isn't so relevant here, but it's that if the person is eating arai, just a temporary snack, then he doesn't need to take Meiser at all, because for temporary snacks right in the field, you don't need to take Meiser. You're allowed to go into the field and eat without taking Meiser. It's only if you're trying to collect it and you're going to bring it to your house, you're going to have a meal, then you're going to be chayav in Meiser. So, what type of Meiser? So we said, when does he have to take Meiser Misafek? That's ba'amaretz. Aval b'chaver. But if it's a person that's trusted to have taken Meiser, oichel bein tzarech la'aser. You could eat without taking Meiser. Divrei Rebbe, that's Rebbe's opinion. We trust the person. Okay. Hai amaretz deka'amar le'laman. Where is he analyzing the case over here? What exactly is going on? The Gemara is asking very appropriate questions to the story. He said that the owner of the field is an Amaretz. And who's he talking to? Who's his guest that's going into the field? Is his guest also an Amaretz? Chavrei, his friend, two Amaratzim are talking. Amaratzim doesn't mean ignoramus. It means someone that's not trusted on Meiser. So these two fellows that aren't trusted on Meiser. So the Gemara asks, Meisran demai mitzayas. You said that you take Meiser just because of a doubt. Mitzayas, is his friend going to listen? But who are you talking to? You're talking to a chaver takes meiser because maybe the Amaretz didn't take meiser. Why didn't the Amaretz take meiser? We don't trust them. They're not so makbid on it. So you have two Amaretz. One is telling the other one, you can take figs. Here's a basket, go take figs. The second one is so frum that we tell him that he has to take meiser because maybe his friend didn't. But if they're both Amiaretz, so they don't take meiser even when it's vadai. Now you're telling him because maybe his friend didn't, now he's going to take. Okay, so that's a valid point. Elaba Mars to come lelechav. Okay, so it must be different. It must be an Amartz is telling a person that's really strict about meiser. He's telling him, go take figs. And we're saying that he should take because we don't know what the first person did. Okay, no problem. So far, no problem. That's the story. However, in Maseifa, let's read further in the Mishnah. There in Divrei Dvarai Midivrei Abba. Rebbe is arguing with his father, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rebbe says that my opinion seems more correct than my father. Why? He says, Mutav sheyachshadu chaverim litrim shleiman amukav al yachilu lam yartz tvalim. It would be better to assume that the chaver violated that minor rule of not taking meiser when you're not actually standing next to it, and say that he did take meiser even though he wasn't standing next to it, than to serve an amaretz tevel. So our assumption here, Rebbe is saying, is that the chaver took meiser even though it wasn't the best situation. Otherwise, he would have served an amaretz tevel. Served an amaretz tevel. That wasn't the case of the Mishnah. He's serving a chaver tevel. You just said that who are the two people in the Mishnah? Well, the owner was an amaretz in the brisa. The owner was an amaretz, and the other fellow was a chaver. So what's Rebbe saying? Better to serve rather than to serve an amaretz tevel. There is no amaretz that's eating over here. There was a chaver that was eating. It's just a phrase that just throws us off. It didn't have to say amaretz, but it said it, so that tells us who he is. But then it doesn't fit with the ratio. Amaretz, my boy Hassan, what's the amaretz doing over there? He was talking to a chaver. Amaravina resha ba'amaretz sham l'chaver. You're right. First case, you proved very clearly that the resha is talking about that he tells the chaver, and amaretz is talking to a chaver, and we tell the chaver that you should take meiser just in case we don't know what the amaretz did. Seifa is b'chaver shamal amaretz. It has to be he's talking to an amaretz because it says he doesn't want to serve an amaretz tevel. However, b'chaver acher shaymai, and there's another chaver that's listening, and we're talking to that other chaver. We're telling him what does he have to take meiser or not have to take meiser. Rebbe Savar, Isich everywhere on top of Lamed Beis and Beis 32. That chaver oichel vein tzarech laser. That chaver doesn't need to take meiser. The vada yisurim maser hahu chaver kami lavei, because for sure the first chaver means the owner for sure took meiser. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer lo yechel ad sheyas. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds no that the fellow that's listening has to take meiser. Talking about here, there's a chaver. The chaver that owns the field, in the Seifa, the chaver owns the field. He's serving an amaretz, and there's another chaver that's listening. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is saying to that other chaver that he has to take meiser. Because the first chaver, the owner of the field, would have done his meiser only correctly. It's not correct, he wouldn't have done it. What's the correct way of doing it? When he stands next to the meiser and he does it. he wasn't standing next to it, so he for sure didn't do it. It's like saying this fellow for sure didn't daven mincha because he didn't have his gartel. No, something like that. That's the Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's approach. So v'amalei, Rebbe says, no, Rebbe says it's better for the chaver to have taken meiser incorrectly, as long as the fellow doesn't, the amaretz doesn't need teva. The ma'ikam miflig, what's the machlekes? It's a very interesting machlekes. Rebbe savar nichali lechaver de liyavid who is surah kalila v'le liyavid amaretz surah rabba. Rebbe holds the chaver would rather do a light avera, as long as the chaver doesn't do a big avera. Shimon ben Gamliel savar nichali lechaver de liyavid amaretz surah rabba v'yu afili surah kalila liyavid. Shimon ben Gamliel holds better for the chaver to do, for the amaretz to do a big avera, but the chaver doesn't want to do even a small avera. It's machlekes. Very interesting. Interesting.
One is Beshoya, one is B'mezid, I guess.
Yeah, true. Taisus over here points out that we had this sugya already in Shabbos. Over there is if someone put bread in an oven, there's an issa d'Rabbanan to remove the bread from the oven on Shabbos. Issa d'Oraisa to bake it. Issa d'Rabbanan to remove it. It was a special way of removing it. It said, should you go ahead and remove the bread on Shabbos to save the other person from it finished baking, which would be a prohibition of Shabbos? It says no. You don't tell a person to sin so that his friend should merit, right? Remember that was at the beginning of Shabbos. It doesn't fit with this. That's Taisus discusses that comparison. But, anyway. Taisus says that here he's the cause of the sin. Over there it was just he was protecting it. Over here he's actually the one that's causing the other one to sin. It's different. That's why it's possible to say that he would do the small avera, in Rebbe's opinion, to make sure that the other person doesn't do any sin. As a cause, as like feeding. That's the interesting piece. Yeah, in the yeshivas, in the Chabad yeshivas, it gets confusing to the Bachrim when they're doing Mitzrayim. Like, who comes first? The other guy that they're putting tefillin on, or their own? It's machlekes. It's of course your own avodah comes first. That's always okay. Nasnu bi'ilan l'mayla me'asara tvachim. He put his Eruv. We're talking about someone that's traveling outside the city. He wants to travel more than 2,000 amas. So he puts the Eruv in a tree. Now, that food, the Eruv is food, that food that he's putting in the tree is his place of resting for Shabbos. It's called Makom Shvisa. That's where his location is. If he put it above 10 Tvachim in the tree, Ein Eruv Eruv. It's not a good Eruv. The Gemara is going to explain why, what the issues are here. What the issues are. Different explanations. One explanation is, the easy explanation, is that the tree is a Rishus HaYachid because it's 4 Tvachim wide. And 4 Tvachim wide, 10 Tvachim high becomes Rishus HaYachid. Where's your location? In the Rishus HaRabim at the bottom. You can't get your Eruv. You can't get it from there. It's from Rishus HaYachid to Rishus HaRabim. That's the problem. That's the simple explanation of this Mishnah. If it's below 10 Tvachim, you put it in the tree. Somehow the tree, it's low branches. So Eruv Eruv, that's fine because that's not considered a Rishus HaYachid. You're in Rishus HaRabim, it's in Rishus HaRabim. It's fine. You're probably thinking, how do you get it out of the tree anyway? Because you're not allowed to take something from a tree on Shabbos, right? That the Gemara is going to discuss. talking about that you don't actually need to take it on Shabbos. You need to have access to it being a shmashas. Being a shmasers, we're going to quote the opinion of Rebbe that holds that we don't have shvus being a shmashas for a mitzvah. So if you don't have so being a shmashas, you would be allowed to remove it from a tree. That's only a derabanan, taking something off a tree. I remember reading this story of the Stipler. He was in Siberia, and the coat that they gave him, he would wear a coat when he was on guard duty. But the person that was on guard duty before would leave his coat on a tree. And it was Shabbos, and he didn't want to take it off the tree until he felt that it was mamash sakana. He ended up going deaf because of that. He waited a little more. I think I can still handle it. That's what I read. Okay, that is a Erev Nasna Babar, but if it was in a pit, afilu amak meya amma, even if it was 100 amas deep, Erev, then it's not a problem. I guess because it can go down to the pit. It doesn't say. The Gemara is going to explain that. Okay. Yosef, Rav Chia Barabba, Rabasi, Rav Barnasan, Yosef Rav Nachman Gabayo, Yosef Kamri. Chia Barabba, I know, is a student of Rav. Rabbi Yassi, sounds like he's from Eretz Yisrael. Rav Barnasan, I'm not sure. Rav Nachman, I know, is a student of Shmuel. And Yosef Kamri, they're sitting and they're talking. Hi Ilan de Koi Hecha. He said there's a tree. He puts his Erev in a tree. Where is the tree? Let's say the tree is in Rosh Hashanah. That means that the fellow on Shabbos would go up to the tree. It's in Rosh Hashanah, and he's in Rosh Hashanah. And that's where his Erev is, and he should be able to continue walking another 2,000 amos. Mali lamaila, mali lamata. It's always Rosh Hashanah. What's the difference? Which location of the tree it's on? If it's low down, if it's high up. The whole thing is Rosh Hashanah. Why is his Erev invalid if it's above 10 tefachim? The Rosh Hashanah goes up until the Rakia. It doesn't switch Rishus in Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah actually switches. Rosh Hashanah turns after 10 tefachim turns into a Makam P'tur. It's easier. But Rosh Hashanah, why is there a difference 10 tefachim above 10 tefachim or under 10 tefachim? Ela de Koi Rosh Hashanah. Must be that the tree is in Rosh Hashanah. We seem to understand already what's going on, that the tree is a Rosh Hashanah, and he's in a Rosh Hashanah. Above 10 tefachim would be a Rosh Hashanah. Under 10 tefachim, it's not a Rosh Hashanah. That would explain everything. The Miskaben Lishbis Hecha. When the person puts his Erev in the tree, where was he intending to settle for Shabbos? Where's his Makam Shvisa? If his location is up in the tree, that's where he wants to be for Shabbos. So, what's the problem? He's in the tree, and his Erev is in the tree. It's not that he can't take it. He's in the same location as his tree. The question that you have, he's not allowed to climb a tree, will be resolved in a later Gemara, in a few lines later. So the Gemara says, here's our problem. Problem is that he wants to be on the bottom of the tree, the base. That's where he's spending Shabbos. Now, he's actually not spending Shabbos there, but that's his location because his food is there. He put his food there, and then he goes home. He sent the shliach to put his food there. He's going to be at the base of the tree, and his food is up in the tree. So he's at the base, and his food is up in the tree. We have an answer. We understand what's going on. He can't get his Erev because his Erev is in Rosh Hashanah, and his Makam Shvisa is in Rosh Hashanah. He doesn't have access to it. Gemara asks, 1 second. So you just made a difference between under 10 tefachim, which is also Rosh Hashanah, and above 10 tefachim, which is the Rosh Hashanah. That's the question that we were thinking the whole time. But he's using a tree. You're not allowed to make use of a tree on Shabbos. What's that from this time? Where did you pick that one up?
It's a guy in the tree, so he's known. What do you want?
We're discussing right now that his lunch is in the tree. And the guy is on the ground. There was a Havamina that maybe the guy's in the tree also. But yeah, okay. So, but he's using a tree. Okay. La'ilam dekoi b'shesarabim. B'niskavanish b'islamata. Rebbe Hidamar kol davar shem shus legozra olav ben hashmashas. I'm not sure why the Gemara has to do that. La'ilam b'shesarabim. B'niskavanish b'islamata. I mean, that was we didn't switch anything anyway. Not sure why the Gemara has to do that. All I wanted to hear for the answer was Rabbi. It's the opinion of Rabbi. It's a simple teretz. The teretz is simple. What's the teretz? It says that a shvus is a din derabanan. Any din derabanan, Rashi tells us somewhere there. Any din derabanan that's on the next page. Called Isser Shabbos v'Yom Tov Tavid derabanan korishvus. Any prohibition on Shabbos or Yom Tov that's rabbinic is called a shvus. Rebbe says that there's no shvus bein hashmashas. Now, when does this Erev take effect? Bein hashmashas. So bein hashmashas, getting into the tree or taking something off the tree would not be prohibited. You question, how do you get it from a tree? That's not a problem because that's a shvus, and I only need to get it bein hashmashas. I'm not even there bein hashmashas possibly, but it doesn't matter. I need to potentially be able to get it bein hashmashas, and I'm able to. So why do you make a difference 10 tefachim or under? Well, that's not a shvus. That's a deraisa. Above 10 tefachim is Rosh Hashanah. That you can't do. That doesn't go away. Amalu Rav Nachman says to them, Yasher, excellent. Yasher means good pshat. You got a good pshat of it. Chinam Shmuel, the Bachadzin, Yasher. Shmuel also said this. Maybe that's what he means. Rav Nachman, Yasher, Chinam Shmuel, Yasher. That Shmuel also learned like this. Rav Nachman was a student of Shmuel. Amrulay, they said to him, Pasrisa Bakule Hai, you explain the Mishnah like that? The Gemara asks. That's how they explain. What are they? They're surprised at Reb Nachman that accepted their pshat. I mean, that was their pshat. So, Ela Hachi Amrulay. This is what they were telling him. Kavisalu b'Gemara. Is this how you explain the Mishnah itself? In other words, do you say after you have a kasha, you say this is the teretz, or do you teach the students Bamed Devarim Amurim? Well, as you learn the Mishnah, is this your initial pshat in the Mishnah? Or is this just what you say when you have a kasha and you have to come to a teretz? Amar Lehuin, yeah, this is how we learned the Mishnah. Itmar Nami, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. We have another statement. Rav Nachman says in the Shmuel, Hacha Beila Naimin B'Shus Rabim Maskinan. This is what we're dealing with. A tree that's in Rosh Hashanah. Gavaya it's 10 tvachim tall, v'rachav arba, and it's wide 4 tvachim, and it's gavlish b'islamata, and he intends to spend Shabbos at the base of the tree. V'Rebbe Hidamar kol davar shemishum shvus legazra olav bein hashmashas, and it's the opinion of Rebbe that holds that you're allowed to access the item that's on the tree if it's under 10 tvachim because it's a shvus. It's only rabbinic prohibition to take something off a tree, and bein hashmashas we don't have the problem of shvus. Of a rabbinic law. Okay, Amar Rava. Rava has another pshat. This was the easy pshat. Rava complicates. Based on a statement that Rava has certain leniency, the pshat becomes more complex. Leishano, this was only taught. Ela be'ila na'imid chutz li b'Rosh says it's only talking about a tree that's outside the additional parts to the city. The way it works is like this. that if you have a city, even if the city has a wall around it, but there are some houses within 70 amas outside the city, that's considered Ibura Shalir, and the city gets extended till the end to where those houses are. And the significance of that is that the whole city becomes like Dalet Amas. Okay. What happened over here is that this fellow needs to walk 3,000 amas or 4,000 amas. Now, along the way was another city. So it doesn't start over when he gets to that city. It's just that whole city, if it's walled in, is called Dalet Amas. So he walks, let's say, 1,000 amas. Then the next, throughout the whole city, let's say, is 1,000 amas that he walks. That was only Dalet Amas. I think it gets condensed. I think that city, if it's in Eiruvin, I'm not sure. But then he has another 1,000 amas to walk, whatever it is, however we're going to measure that city. He put his Eruv not in the city. He put his Eruv outside the city in a tree. And we're outside the city, the city in the middle. We're outside the city. Chutz li bur shalir, it's outside the 70 amas. Aval ilan ha'omed b'toichi bur shalir. But let's say the tree would have been within the city, not the city limits, but the surrounding of the city limits, that additional area. Afilu ma'ila me'asara hareza eruv. Even if it would be above 10 tvachim, the eruv would be valid. Why? What is Rava doing to us over here with this city limits? What's he saying? He's saying Damasa Kamanyam Damalya Dami. Says that a city is as if it's filled up with dirt. What he means is that ignore for now the laws of Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah carrying between Rosh Hashanah and Rosh Hashanah. Those are not changing. If there's no Eruv there and it's a Rosh Hashanah, it's a Rosh Hashanah. That's what it is. The only thing that Rav is doing is he's saying that when it comes to Hilchas Eiruvin, and there's a difference of where you put the Eruv, that it should be in your location. So what happens is if you put it up here and you were planning on spending Shabbos here, so the whole city is as if it's filled up, and you like float up to the area of your Eruv, and that's where your Makom Shvis is. It's considered like you're in the same place. It's true, you can't access it. But it's as if that's where you were settling. It's as if, remember we said that if he was planning on spending Shabbos in the tree, so hu ve'eruv b'makom echad. So it's as if that it's filled in and he's up to the level of where his Eruv is. That's what he says if it would be within the city limits. Doesn't change the halachas about if you're allowed to take it or move it. It's an imaginary makam shvisa that it goes up to the height of where his eruv is. So hu ve'eruv makam echad, and it would work. Okay. If that's the case, you have a problem. Rava told us this very fine halacha. Sounds like a leniency if the Eruv is within some sort of city limit, within the 70 amas outside the city. Yihachi, we have a problem. Chutz li bur shalir nami. Even if you put it outside those 70 amas, kivan damar Rav hanisneru ve'yesh li arba amas havel Rosh Hashanah Rosh Hashanah elad l'rakia. Let's say a person puts his Eruv outside 2,000 amas. So you can't really access it. It's too far away. So he walks to the place of his Eruv. He can't get it because it's at 2,001 amas, 2,002 amas. He can't access it. He can't access the Eruv. Rava says it's not true. He could still access the Eruv because his location contains 4 amas. So when he gets to his place, he has 4 amas, and he could reach out and access that Eruv that's at 2001, 2002. That's still considered, that whole area that he reaches is considered his location. He's like as if he's walking with this 4 amas around him. So when he gets there, I'm sorry?
Doesn't that go against the whole Gemara we learned earlier, where you're on your porch, you're inside your window, and you reach out to Rosh Hashanah, whether you could pull in or all of a sudden you're telling me Daled Amas can exist beyond my limitation?
No, because what we're saying is he's not carrying 4 amas in Rosh Hashanah. He's carrying 2 amas. Okay, and he's not carrying from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. It's both to Rosh Hashanah. We're just saying that his Makom Shvisa is containing him because it's within 4 amas. It's like your place for davening in Shul. You're supposed to have a Makom Kavua. So they moved the bench a little bit. You have your 4 amas. It doesn't need to be exactly that spot. Here, there, whatever. That's your makom. So here also for the Eruv, your shvisa is not on the spot of the Eruv. Your shvisa is in the 4 amas of the Eruv. What we're asking now is, if that's the case, and Rava holds that the place of your shvisa could extend, that you extend upward, if it's a city and if it's within the city. So since his Eruv becomes like a Rosh Hashanah, his Eruv contains 4 amas. So we should look at that location of his, not in Dinei carrying on Shabbos, but it's still Rosh Hashanah. But we consider it, we view it like that whole area is his Eruv. And we should also view it like as if it's raised up. Why do you tell me that above 10 Tvachim it's no good? If he can access it, so then, because we said 4 amas, if he can access it, then that whole area is raised up. It's like a Rosh Hashanah, even if it's 10 amas tall. The whole area is one Rosh Hashanah. There's some comparisons here that are not perfect, because what are you telling me? It's Rosh Hashanah. It's not Rosh Hashanah, it's Rosh Hashanah. You just compared a city that gets filled in to the place of his Eruv that also gets filled in this, like as if he floats up. I mean, it's not so pashut what's going on. Anyway, Amar Rav Yitzchak Breder Mishash Yacha Be'ilan Anaita Chutz La'arbamas Eskinim comes up with a strange case. In order to explain this, according to Rava, you have to say he's putting his Eruv in a tree. The tree happens to be, the base of the tree is where he's spending Shabbos. That's what he wants. Where's his Eruv? His Eruv is somewhere in the tree outside of his 4 amas. We said that his 4 amas go up as high as, so it doesn't matter, even if it's 10 Tvachim high, he's at the place of his Eruv. What are you making a big deal? So yeah, that would only be if the Eruv would be right above the base of the tree. But the Eruv is not above the base of the tree. The Eruv goes up the tree and it moves over 4 amas, because the tree has a branch that goes up and then it bends over. So we say like this: if when it bends over and it's out of his 4 amas, it's within 10 Tvachim from the ground, so then we say that it's accessible, and he's in the same location. It's not in a Rosh Hashanah because it's within 10 Tvachim of the ground. So we say that it's that's an acceptable layer. But if it's above 10 Tvachim and it's 4 amas away from him because the branch of the tree, the trunk of the tree, or wherever he put his Eruv, bends over like that, so then we say that he's not within the 4 amas of his Eruv, so it doesn't extend upwards. So hu ve'eruva is not b'makom echad. He's in a different place of his Eruv, and it doesn't work. So it's been a skavel nishvos be'ikri. he intended to spend Shabbos at the base, and his Eruv is not directly above the base, it's 4 amos away from the base. So he doesn't extend upward. We say like this, Maila, Maila, Maila Mata. What are you saying over here? If it's above, if it's below? You're basically telling me two cases. One is where the tree bends below 10 tefachim. One is where the tree bends above 10 tefachim. Okay, and you're putting it 4 amos away. You shouldn't say lamaila or lamata if you have two different trees that you're dealing with. You're giving me two different cases. You should use, what expression should you use? You should say gavaya or namach. Lamai lamata means that it's one tree, and where on the tree did you put it? But now that you're telling me that the tree bends below 10 tefachim, so what's above and what's below? The Gemara says, okay, I can answer that. The had is zakif. The tree then bends upwards. You have this interesting looking tree. You have a base, goes up, turns sideways, and it goes up again. And we're discussing where is the Eruv. It's out of his 4 amos from the base of the tree. If it's below 10 tefachim, it's still good. And if it's above 10 tefachim, because of the incline of the tree, so then it's not good. What's the problem? Let him go to the where his Eruv is and move it along the tree till it's within 4 amos of it. What's the problem? It says Kisharabim Mekatimala. Come up with a very interesting problem. Talking about that on the tree, there's a spot that the public uses to put their bags down. We're suggesting that he goes to his Eruv, move the Eruv over closer to the base, 2 amos at a time. 2 amos at a time. It's all, if it's above 10 tefachim, it's all Rosh Hashanah. Move it. Well, he doesn't need to move 2 amos at a time. It's Rosh Hashanah. He can just move it over. It's Rosh Hashanah. It's above 10 tefachim. So we're talking about he's not doing this on Shabbos, but he should be able to do this bein hashmashas. So we're saying that he should be able to have access to his Eruv. Why? Because he would be able to move it over. You say, no, he actually can't move it over. Why? Because there's a little spot on that tree where people put their bags down when they're walking. And that area is considered a Rosh Hashanah. Now, you can't carry from Rosh Hashanah to another Rosh Hashanah through Rosh Hashanah. You want to carry it along the tree, that you can't do. It says that this is considered even if it's, you see, really, it should be a makom p'tur. Really, it should be a makom p'tur. If you have a pillar in Rosh Hashanah that's not 4 tefachim, it becomes a makom p'tur because it's not really an area and it's not attached to the ground because it's above 3 tefachim. From anything within 3 tefachim of the ground is Rosh Hashanah. Once you get above 3 tefachim, then it depends on its size. If it's 4 tefachim, then it becomes a carmelis, and if it's under 4 tefachim, then it's a makom p'tur. If it's above 10 tefachim, then it becomes Rosh Hashanah. So what we're saying over here is that there's an area on this tree that becomes Rosh Hashanah, and the other part of the tree where his Eruv is 10 tefachim, above 10 tefachim off the ground. So he's moving it from Rosh Hashanah into Rosh Hashanah that he can't do, so he can't access it. There's a lot of stuff going on here to explain this Mishnah according to Rava. It's much easier to say the difference between 10 tefachim and under 10 tefachim is if you can access it, bein hashmashas, because it's a Rosh Hashanah versus Rosh Hashanah. Here we have to say, because of Rava's statement that the city gets filled in, So therefore, we extended that to the place of his Eruv also gets filled. The place of his Shrisa also gets filled in. So now we have to move it out of his location by 4 Amos to be able to learn this Mishnah. And then we say that why can't he get it back? Because there's a spot in the middle of the branch, of the trunk of the tree, that's Rabin Mekatzimalav, that people put their branches there. It's just a very complicated explanation. Okay. If the Rav Chia Bar Abba, Rabasi, and Rabbi Bar Nosson were surprised at Rav Nachman for learning the Mishnah, that it's like that, to learn the Mishnah like Rava is so much more complex. Okay. My Rebbe, my Rabbanan. Remember before we said that there was an opinion of Rebbe that says, Kol davar shemishum shvus le'gazra olav. It's a shvus, they didn't make a gzeira. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Nasnu be'ilan l'mayla me'asara. If it was put into a tree, the Eruv, it's above 10 tefachim. L'mayla me'asara tefachim. Any Eruv Eruv. If you learn like Rava, when we say it's in a tree above 10 tefachim, we're talking about that the tree had to bend for Amos, and it's over there. Okay, whatever the case is. It's no good. You can't, it's not a good Eruv. It's above 10 tefachim, and it's out of his Dalet Amos as well. L'mata me'asara tefachim. If it's below 10 tefachim, Eruv Eruv. The Eruv is good. But also little, but you can't take it. You're allowed to take it bein hashmashas, but you can't take it on Shabbos. So you don't have to take it. You just you were kind of shvisa bein hashmashas, and that's good enough. Just the Mishnah is telling you, the Bryce is telling you, when you get there, by the way, you can't eat it. But okay, if it's within 3 tefachim of the ground, then mutter little, you're even allowed to take it. It's considered on the ground. It's not considered on a tree. If there would be a little stump on the ground, a little stump of the tree, I don't know, the root sticks out or something. Sometimes it has like a little thing. That is considered part of the ground. Nasnu bekalkala v'talu be'ilan. If you put it in a basket and you hung it on the tree, afilu l'mayla me'asar tefachim Eruv Eruv, it's going to be good. Divrei Rebbe. That's the opinion of Rebbe. We had a sugya like this once before. It was called tzdadim. If you're allowed to use the sides of something that, the side of a tree or the side of an animal or something that was muktzah. Rebbe says it's fine. So it's in a basket on the tree. Even if it's above 10 tefachim, the Eruv is good. We have to see why. So, Chachamim say if you can't take it, it's not a good Eruv. What are the Chachamim referring to? So, which case are the Chacham referring to? Ilema Seifa, if they're talking about the basket. It must be that the Chacham hold that you can't use the side of a tree, you can't take it. The Chacham come along and say, if you can't take the Eruv, then it's not a good Eruv, it's a big Chumrah. You can't take the Eruv, it's not good. What are they talking about? The basket. You can't take it out of it. Why can't you take it out of the basket? The basket happens to be attached to the tree. Rebbe holds that you're allowed to use the sides of the tree, which means something that's hanging off the tree. And the Chacham hold you're not allowed to. So let's say that the Chacham hold that it's usher. Now, we have a problem with this because we had a discussion later on Meirayim if it's Tzaddim Asur or not. Why did we have that discussion? The Gemara doesn't go through all of this. Why did we have that discussion? It's a Machlekes Tanaim. Machlekes Rebbe and the Rabbanan about Tzdadim. So we don't want to say that there's really a Machlekes Rebbe and the Rabbanan about Tzdadim. That was a later Machlekes that we don't have any support for from earlier, we don't have clear support for from earlier Machlekes. Ela Aresha. The Chachamim were saying, they're arguing with the first opinion, and they're saying that if you can't take the Eruv, it's no good. It wasn't about the basket. That was the second part of the brisa. It was about the first part of the brisa. What did the first part say? Well, if it's above 10 tefachim, it's not a good Eruv. Well, okay, fine. That's a Chacham also say if you can't take it, it's not a good Eruv. But if it's below 10 tefachim, we said it is a good Eruv. Chachamim say, nope, it's on the tree. You can't take it off the tree. So it's not a good Eruv. This is what we were looking for. Rebbe, we quoted before that Rebbe says anything that's mishum shvus, you're allowed to you're allowed to bein hashmashos, it's mutter. So that's the opinion of Rebbe over here that says it's on a tree, but it's below 10 tefachim, you can access it. And the Chachamim argue, they say it's mishum shvus, it's below 10 tefachim, it's not a good Eruv because you can't access it even though it's only a shvus. We just explained what we were looking for. We quoted it in the name of Rebbe, and it's mashma that the Chachamim argue. We found it. Chachamim argue. Now the Gemara asks some technical questions. Hi ilan hechidam. What's the case of the tree? Either lesbo arba. If it doesn't have 4 tvachim, no, this is a skinny tree. It doesn't have 4 tvachim. So makam p'tur. Why can't you take it if it's above 10 tvachim? An area that's not 4 by 4 wide is not a Rishus HaYachid. You're in a Rishus HaRabim at the base. Your Eruv is in a Makam P'tur. It's on a stick. It's on a tree. But according to Rebbe, there was a difference between above 10 and below 10. We explained that difference is above 10 was a Rishus HaYachid. You can't access it. But if it's not 4 Tvachim wide, so it's not a Rishus HaYachid, you should be able to access it. What's the difference above 10 and below 10? It should be a good Eruv. B'dispo arba, and if there is 4 Tvachim there, everything is good. However, we just have one problem. What do you gain by putting it into a basket where Rebbe says you're allowed to take it? If the basket is on a tree, and the tree is a Rishus HaYachid, the basket is a Rishus HaYachid as well. Why does Rebbe say, if it's in a basket, even if it's above 10 Tvachim, it's fine. Why it's in Rishus HaYachid and you're in Rishus HaRabim, you can't access it. Not even bein hashmashos. It's a daraisa, on a shvus. Amar Ravina. Ravina comes along to answer this. Reisha dispo arba, seifed lespo arba. So we're going to have to answer. So the reisha of the tree that says that there's a difference above 10 and below 10 is talking about when the tree is 4 tvachim wide. So above 10 is a Rishus HaYachid, below 10 is not a Rishus HaYachid. That's why above 10 is no good, and below 10 it is good. And the Sefer, where we said that if there's a basket, it's acceptable, that's because the tree was not 4 tvachim wide. The kalkala mashlimte l'arba. However, the basket makes it into 4. Yes, the basket, what happens is the base is narrow and the top widens. Now, there's a discussion about this regarding a boat that's narrow on the bottom, the top widens. If that's really considered a makim of arba tvachim, because at the bottom it's not arba tvachim. Do you view it as like a pillar that it's straight sides, or do you view it as the bottom and it's not really arba, even if it's arba on the top? Rebbe, excuse me. Rebbe holds like Reb Meir. We're going to see that he holds that you view it as if it's a solid. And the Sabalak Reb Yehuda, and he also holds like Reb Yehuda. Sabalak Reb Meir, Damar Chaykim Lahashlim. Chaykim Lahashlim, we use this, that you carve it out to make it the size that you want it to be complete. So here that would mean that if it's wide on the top, it's also wide on the bottom, and it's considered 4 tvachim all the way. The Savalak Reb Yehuda, he also holds a Reb Yehuda be'inan Erev al gabi makim arba v'leka. 1 second, that should be just the opposite. So we're saying like this. Without the basket, you wouldn't be allowed to use this tree. It's only with the basket that allows you, because he holds that you need to put an Erev on a area of 4 tvachim. So that's the opinion of Rebbe, which you're going to see in a moment. So, okay. My Rebbe Yehuda, which Rebbe Yehuda do we have? What's Rebbe Yehuda that says? It's the Tanya Rebbe Yehuda Imra. Rebbe Yehuda says, if you put a stick in the public area, you put the Erev on top. So Gvaya Sarah Chava Arba, if it's 10 tvachim tall, 4 tvachim wide, Eruva Yeruv, because he holds that it needs to be on a makam arba, it needs to be an Eruv on a proper location, which is 4x4. V'im lav, but if this beam that's in the ground is not 4x4, or it's not 10 tvachim high, ein Eruv Yeruv, it's not a good Eruv. Just 1 second. Other Abba, that's a problem. If it's not 10 tvachim tall, then it's better. Hu Eruv makam echad. That's for sure good. Alahachi kamar. And what it means to say is like this: Gvaya asara. If it's 10 tvachim high, tzarich sheyehei b'reisha arba. Then the top needs to be 4 tvachim because it needs to be a makam chashav here. It needs to be placed down on a makam chashav. But if not, then it's not a good eruv. So ein gvaya asara. But if it's not 10 tvachim high, then ein tzarich sheyehei b'reisha arba. Then it doesn't need to be doesn't need to be 4 tvachim. Doesn't need to be 4 tvachim wide. Okay, let's leave it right here, right before Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda. Okay, we're stopping at Kamar.